Okay, well, I guess we gotta do some marketing. Instead of handing out flyers on Vinewood Boulevard, I want you airdropping them over the city. There's a chopper waiting, ready to take off. Your flyer...
Welcome to the lecture on competitive market realities. I'm Professor Adam, and we're going to be doing an exploration of the different types of environments that market competition are most intense over. We're going to be looking at different opportunities that you'll have available to you, and generally just a good understanding of how dangerous the market is, where it's the most dangerous, and how we can use this information to our advantage. So let's get into it. As a foreword, I want to let you know that this university is one of the most interesting and unique educational facilities on Earth. As an individual, I cannot shill tokens, I cannot profit off any misleading information that I give to you, and I am incentivized through my reputation to give you the best possible information, the most unique information, so that you can make the most money possible. This means that you're going to be exposed to unfortunate realities, which 99% of the marketers out there on the internet who disguise themselves as traders will likely not tell you. This is because it is in direct competition to their main goal, which is to sell you as much hopium as possible. This lecture will be an absolute mind-boggling, brain-bending, dream-destroying fucking... It's gonna blow your mind and it's gonna fuck you up if you allow it, which I hope you do, because what I'm about to tell you will save you likely years, if not save your entire career and save you from blowing up your accounts multiple times. It is my sincere hope that you recognize that I'm not on social media peddling anything, and because of this, I am able to tell you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. I'm so glad that I get to do this for you guys because, as you know, I approach the market from a high degree of skepticism and pessimism because I want to make sure the probabilities are stacked in my favor, and we're about to dive into that right now. However, before you allow all hope to leave your body, I've used my exceptional experience and research to find holes and pathways into all the different sections of the market where we have the highest probabilities of making money. And this is how I have lived my whole life. This is how I have made my money. So you're going to be learning from me, but it's very important to understand why the market is dangerous, what your competition is, and who you're up against and how they behave in the first place. So, welcome to the lecture on the efficient market hypothesis. What is the efficient market hypothesis? The efficient market hypothesis is a framework for understanding how competitive financial markets work. It states that asset prices reflect all available information. It is said that markets are the most effective way of aggregating pieces of information dispersed amongst individuals within a society. Given the ability to profit from private information, self-interested traders are motivated to acquire and act on private information. In doing so, traders contribute to more and more efficient market prices. What different levels of EMH do we have? This is because we can't have one holistic, overall, totally encompassing theory here, or else the whole markets would never operate and nobody would participate in them. So we have to understand that there are different forms of EMH and that they take different levels. So the first one, which is the weak form of the efficient market hypothesis, this one states that the prices in the market reflect all past data, and this implies that technical analysis cannot work. The semi-strong form theory suggests that prices reflect all publicly known information, which means that fundamental analysis won't work. The strong form theory suggests that all public and private information is priced into the markets, so insider trading will not work. So the efficient market hypothesis has been a fixture of financial discussion throughout history. Is it weak? Is it semi-strong? Or is it strong? There has been debate raging for decades. However, with all this debate, we also have a lot of principles, a lot of tests that have been done, and we can kind of dial down into which particular dimensions of this theory are the most true, so we know where to place our efforts in order to make the most money possible and to not make ourselves whale food for the more informed and more well-resourced participants in the market. So to get more nuanced and to describe what the strong form hypothesis actually looks like, you should take a look at this thing that I have on the screen now. This is a post from Reddit, and this is one of the most hilarious descriptions of the strong form hypothesis that I have ever seen. I highly encourage you to pause the video right now and have a read of that. It's absolutely hilarious. After reading this, you'll see that, yes, indeed, the market can almost price in anything in the market, and some people believe this to be true. However, it's likely not this insane. because things are constantly changing. The market's a very chaotic place. And also somebody needs to be acting on the information. So at some point it needs to be slightly inefficient so it can be made efficient. In this sense, you can see that the strong form isn't totally true. However, it's good to understand the base principles behind it and how it works in theory, just so we have something to work from. Now, the weak form is one of the most hilarious ones. So if you look at this chart that I have up on the screen right now, you can see this is how the majority of market participants believe. They're like, no, you don't understand. My technical analysis is different. And they'll draw a whole bunch of different random lines on the charts. They'll think that their finger paintings and their artworks are better than other people's artworks. The only real exploitation of weak form market hypothesis and the technical analysis that people generally are inclined to deploy into the market is really so that you can go one step further and try and counter trade the people who genuinely do believe in technical analysis. However, this requires a very strong mental framework, a very chess-like thinking approach to the market, where you don't delude yourself into believing that you're the one counter trading other people when you are actually the one being counter traded, because somebody else, instead of thinking 2 moves ahead, is thinking 3 moves ahead, and they fuck you over using that. So there are many ways that this can fuck up for people if they believe that they're going to go into the market and exploit the people who do believe in weak form by using technical analysis to detect these areas where they'll make the wrong decisions. You too will likely become part of that weak form problem because of your inability to think an infinite number of steps out into the future. So for that reason, we generally don't rely on weak form market hypothesis. It's generally understood that weak form is true and that you shouldn't be engaging in anything or any activity that would expose you to this. So with these two being looked at, now we have the semi-strong form left. If you look at the chart that I have on the screen, you'll see this is the generally accepted price behavior of a semi-strong market. So you have in the middle a efficient market response to good news, which is essentially a square wave. You have an instantaneous pricing in of this information into the market. It's priced in, it was perfectly accurate, and then the market moves on from there. However, the buy the rumor, sell the news, the overreaction, and the delayed response effect are 3 observations in the market that are known to be true and that are effects that we can actually exploit or predict to certain levels of confidence. So the buy the rumor, sell the news effect is the one that's most likely that you're going to see in the market. The reason being is because it's the one that tries to price in the information the earliest. So you can see that the purple line actually moves up faster and sooner than any of the other responses. And then at the actual event, it then reverts to the mean over time. This is a version of overreaction, but except it's happening further forwards in future. This is the reaction to an event that is known, something where people are actually anticipating it. So you can counter trade this depending on if you can detect it in the market or not. The overreaction to good news effect in the red. Now that one is more of a surprise type of effect, where you have a sudden piece of information that's dropped on the market that's immediately relevant. Everyone will overprice that into the market, and then you'll have the reactionary impulse, which actually then counter trades that, and you have an oscillating type of effect where everybody is trying to find the most likely price in the market that fully reflects that news. Then you have the delayed response. The delayed response is the least likely for obvious reasons because you're incentivized to front run this effect. The delayed response is generally in response to news that happens over a very long time horizon, something that's maybe years or decades into the future. The delayed response will be the most likely one. But generally speaking, that's not the one that people exploit the most. The buy the rumor, sell the news, and the overreaction effect are the 2 most likely forms of the semi-strong form that you can use to your advantage when trading or investing. Generally, you can use these ones to set your expectations. So if you see a run-up in anticipation of a good news event, generally, that will be overpriced into the market, so you will know not to chase. If you see a strong reactionary impulse after a overreaction of a sudden news event, that also is a high likelihood of don't chasing that event, otherwise you'll be whipped around on the other side of those trades. So knowing these can be very beneficial to you, and these types of events are actually very indicative of a semi-strong market hypothesis theory. So this is the one that most people actually assign themselves to for this very reason. So one of the points that we've covered is the insider trading and strong form market hypothesis relationship. It's generally understood that, or at least the theory goes, that strong form cannot be true because of insider trading laws, which actually prevent insiders from acting on that information. However, the reality of the market is a lot different. We know that the SEC, being just an organization made of people and, fallible people, just as any organization is, it has limitations on the amount of people that it can possibly prosecute. To the best of my knowledge, the SEC prosecutes about 50 people per year for insider trading. And then when you consider all the different corporations in just the United States alone, and all the people working in management for those corporations, and all of the politicians, and all the friends of the people that are working in those corporations, you can quickly see that the amount of people who are actually doing insider trading far exceeds the SEC's ability to prosecute them, which means that insider trading is likely heavily acted upon because of the incentives, which, if you have private information, you can make far more money than any public person, even with all the information in the world. And this kind of theory, this suspicion, is backed up by the US attorneys who have been quoted in saying that insider trading is rampant in basically all markets. It's really the ability to detect and prosecute it that prevents the semi-strong form from being a reality. So with this being said, really we can say that the strong form, or at least something closer to strong form, can be most likely, because we know the semi-strong form exists, but we were saying, oh well, the strong form can't exist because of insider trading, but we know that it's not really prosecuted. Maybe like 10% or 20% of the insiders are prosecuted. I don't know, it's probably less than that. It's probably like 5% or something. Then really, the true nature of the market is not really semi-strong or strong. It's kind of like semi-strong. It's probably closer in the middle to these two, which means that it becomes even harder to profit from insider information, even if you have it, because probably a lot of other people are acting on that information as well. Which means semi-strong form approaches to the market are going to be very difficult, and even strong form insider trading can sometimes be, not as exploitable as you might think it is. This is all pretty negative. However, there is light at the end of the tunnel. We can go down different paths and look at different ways that we can exploit the market. So let's have a look at some of the different ways that we can exploit the market, some of the opportunities that are available to us. So probably the most beneficial and actionable version of all of these different theories that we can use is actually Samuelson's dictum. Now, this type of theory suggests that the market is actually micro-efficient but macro-inefficient. This is due to the ability for an individual, say a wealthy individual, to act on a single piece of information at the single asset level. For example, you can have somebody with maybe a couple of $1 billion. They have some information, they can execute their orders in the market, they can price that information out very quickly. However, at a very large scale, if you have something that affects, say, an entire market or an entire country, it will take hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions, it will take billions and billions of dollars to sterilize that piece of information out of the market over time, and it takes time and it takes a lot of money as well. So for these reasons, it's unlikely that at a very high scale that we will have inefficiencies at the market that we cannot exploit, but it also makes it very likely that over short time horizons there are inefficiencies that we can't exploit. So the practical application of this principle is that we need to go very large and we need to go very long as far as duration is concerned. And within this window of opportunity, we actually have the probabilities in our favor to the highest likelihood, which is very favorable for retail traders, which is us, and that's where we're operating from. So here is our first major window of opportunity where
get them, bring them back to the hangar, just so you know.
We can see into the market and say, hey, look, we have an opportunity here. We know where things are the least efficient so that we can actually target this. So that makes sense to me. And this is actually one of the guiding principles that helps us get to the most money. So, issues with the efficient market hypothesis. One of the first ones is liquidity. So over the short time horizons, or maybe even long time horizons, depending on where you are, depending on what assets you're trading, there's going to be different liquidity issues. One of the most obvious ones is liquidity issues in markets where there are no participants or where there are very few participants. Think of industrial machinery, or think of land sales for mineral deposits and oil mining and things like this. Or maybe you're buying and selling an oil tanker to a different country or something. Sometimes there is very low transaction volume, there is information asymmetry, there is a low frequency of turnover. All these different things can actually reduce market participation and market pricing efficiency over very large time horizons and very expensive assets, but also over very short time horizons as well. Sometimes there is too much liquidity. Sometimes a lot of people are incentivized to extract all of that liquidity over very short time horizons as well. The Forex market is a great example of this because it has so much liquidity and it contains all the information from each country that are being traded within that market, combined with the fact that everybody's incentivized to sterilize that information as soon as possible, means that over very short time horizons, the Forex market is an algorithmic meat grinder of the highest proportions, and there is absolutely no signal in the Forex market at all. But also over most markets, if you have a market that is able to be traded over short time horizons, all that information is going to be squeezed into the shortest time horizons possible, not only because of the time value of money, which I talked about in one of my previous lectures, the introduction lecture to the investing, but also because of the incentive to prevent other people from acting on this information over shorter time horizons. So for this reason, I believe that over shorter time horizons, there is more market competition, and you probably have very, very, very strong form EMH over short time horizons, and this effect actually gradually dissipates over time. Transaction costs are another issues that we have with the EMH. So often you'll find people talking about cross-exchange arbitrage, where there'll be a mispricing between one exchange and another exchange. So you'll have Bitcoin being priced at like $10,000 on one exchange and Bitcoin being priced at $11,000 on another exchange. So they'll say, why don't I just simply buy Bitcoin on the cheap exchange and sell it on the most expensive exchange? That way I can make a risk-free profit of $100 or whatever the volume that you're willing to transact in. Generally, because this money is risk-free, somebody would have already exploited it, and generally the transaction costs or the transaction controls are the things that are preventing you from actually doing this. So you'll find that maybe it costs you $100 to move the money across, or there's actually a time-based control or a time restriction of some sort between those two different exchanges. So if you were to pull your money out from one exchange and put it into the other, it may take an entire day instead of instantaneously, or maybe that exchange has shut down deposits completely. A good example of this was when FTX recently went bust and they closed off deposits and withdrawals, and the price of Bitcoin on that exchange was actually out of whack compared to everywhere else. It was like hundreds and hundreds of dollars difference, and it was floating around all over the place. This is a great example of transaction controls and transaction costs preventing the efficient market hypothesis from playing out. This doesn't mean that you can say, there's an exploitable difference in there, because there is always some reason. Sometimes there's a reason that you can't detect, and if you went to participate in that market, you would quickly find out that there's actually no money to be made, and you've missed a critical piece of information. This is actually closer towards the semi-strong to strong form hypothesis. And finally, we also have the joint test hypothesis problem, which means that we do not have a version of historical events which were perfect for us to compare it to, like a measuring stick. So we cannot simulate what the perfect version of the past can look like and what it would actually be like if every human on Earth was to make the most rational decision in that point in time. The computational power would simply not exist to simulate that. So we can never truly know what that would look like. With that being said, we can never go back in time and compare strong, weak, or semi-strong, or very strong, or any of these different measurements to each other, which is unfortunate. But it just goes to show that it's worthwhile looking into this. It's generally understood that the semi-strong form to strong form exists, and we can use certain empirical evidence to run tests and everything. However, it's worthwhile mentioning that you can never truly prove or disprove any of these different forms. It's really just the best research that we have. However, in my personal experience, because I've been in the market for many years now, been trying lots of different trading styles, been doing constant research into this, it's my life's work. It's my best understanding that the semi-strong to strong form exists, and we need to operate somewhere within that understanding and not try to delude ourselves into believing that there's some other form out there, maybe that the weak form is fine and that we can, making money is really easy. It's a competitive open market and we have to be at peace with that fact, but it's okay because it opens up different opportunities for us. So generally you'll find if something in the market is quick or easy, it probably doesn't work. The things that do work are often hard, novel, require a lot of time and patience, suppression of critical cognitive biases, or things that don't make sense. Not making sense is really where the majority of the psychological bias suppression and the technical ability comes into the market. In order to make money in the market, I believe that you have to go and you have to do things that other people are unwilling or find very difficult to do. Number one is actually the suppression of all the different faulty decision-making abilities that the brain has. We can call them abilities, really, they're more like faults. And to also have techniques and tactics at your disposal that other people are either unwilling to use or that they find maybe a little too nuanced, a little too difficult, and then apply those psychological and tactical principles over the time horizons where there's the least competition. It's that opening, that window of opportunity that we have. So applying all these things together, actually putting them in the right place at the right time, using the right techniques, this is how we make the most money possible. This is how I do it, and this is how I believe that we should be approaching the market as a team. So in summary, remember that market participants are paid in proportion to their ability to prevent you from acting on the same information that they do, and that there is so many people competing in the same space over the same time horizons, and they're trying to exploit each other to the maximum degree possible. This means that most of the things that you think that work in the market do not work at all. Otherwise, they would work for everybody, and they simply don't. Cross-exchange arbitrage is a faulty pipe dream. It's not going to work. The transaction costs make it prohibitive, which means that you cannot exploit them. No form of analysis will work on individual assets over short time horizons. Markets eventually price in all known information. However, they price in less information over longer time horizons compared to shorter time horizons, which opens up opportunities for us there. And that technical analysis is unlikely to work over all time horizons. However, fundamental analysis and insider trading is most likely to work over time on other time horizons as well. So generally, in summary, if I could summarize the summary, we can use a lot of different analysis types, mostly fundamental and insider trading if possible. Technical analysis maybe, but mainly at the largest possible scales of assets, which is at the index level, at the largest possible scale, or over the longest possible time horizons. I hope this makes sense, because obviously if we fail to understand this, if we fail to stay in the places where we have the highest probability of actually making money, we drift into other parts of the market where we simply get destroyed by the other market participants that have maybe more research, that maybe they have more people, they have better connections than we do. As retail traders, we're trying to stack the probabilities in our favor to the best that we possibly can. I will teach you all the tactics and techniques necessary to do this in the following lectures. We'll get more and more complex over time so that we can give you the things that you need to exploit the market as much as possible compared to every other retail trader. So with that being said, thank you very much, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. So my friend, welcome to the lecture on investing styles. What we're going to be doing is actually exploring a few different definitions, and then as we do the definitions, we'll be bringing them together so you know how they relate to each other. This originally was going to be just some definitions that I was going to present to you, but I realized as I was writing this lecture that I could actually combine a few of them together so that it makes sense. I think in this way, it'll be easier for you to understand everything a little bit faster than normal. So we'll get straight into it and give you some overviews of these different investing styles. So the three main concepts that we're going to be exploring here are the differences between the words alpha and beta, the difference between active and passive investing, and the difference between medium and long-term investing. As we cover these three different points, you'll see how they all come together naturally. So we'll start with alpha and beta. Alpha being the amount of return that you receive above and beyond a benchmark, and beta being the amount of correlation and volatility that you have relative to a benchmark. So alpha and beta, the unofficial definitions, or how I would describe them. No, this isn't some game or red pill thing. Alpha and beta isn't the difference between two different types of men and how they approach their lives. No, this is financial speak. Alpha, I would define in an unofficial kind of term, being the return that an individual or a system can generate when you're trying to extract additional price information from the market or additional information, whatever it is, to get a better return, often that's uncorrelated as well to the asset that you're trying to extract this alpha from. It's one of the holy grails of alpha generation, and you hear this a lot, is where you're trying to produce an excess return while also having it uncorrelated to the market. Uncorrelated excess returns is really where the jewels are in the market. This is the beef. This is what everybody wants. This is the good stuff. And of course, if everybody wants it, that means it's the most rare and the most competitive. So keep that in mind as we explore the other definitions. So beta, on the other hand, the unofficial definition that I would describe it as, the amount of extra performance that you'd get from an asset if you were just holding it and you're trying to get additional gains from that asset while it's still remaining somewhat correlated without necessarily using a whole shitload of leverage. You can kind of see where they start to come together. Alpha is more of a strategy. Beta is more of holding something that gives you approximately the same price behavior, but just slightly higher performance. So if you look at this chart that I've put on the screen here, you can see that this probably describes how beta works a little bit better than just me describing it with words. You can see that if you were to invest in something with high beta, being that with the orange line, you would want to buy high beta low and sell high beta high. This way you would maximize the amount of money that you make, and you can take advantage of low beta as well. So as the market declines, you would move into low beta assets. This is a way of changing your risk profile so that you're taking on the most amount of gains when the market is going up and reducing the amount of losses when the market goes down. And as you can see by the next chart, we have the orange line, which represents what Bitcoin would look like if it was high beta. This particular example is kind of cheating because it is a high leveraged index. So that means it's going to be highly correlated to Bitcoin, almost perfectly correlated, and it just moves up faster and down faster. You can see this on the chart. So moving on to the next set of definitions, we have the difference between active and passive investing. Active investing is where an individual or a system is actively working in the market to try and gain additional alpha. So here is where you have a whole bunch of rules or a whole bunch of strategies that you're trying to deploy, and it's actually a very labor and time intensive process. This is where you're trying to put additional work into the market in order to gain additional rewards. Active investing, by definition, of course, this is more along the lines of trading, or this is kind of like a trading activity where you believe that you can exchange your time for additional performance out of the market. Now, a passive investing strategy, this is where you develop a technique or a thesis or some sort of rule set or a strategy or whatever, and generally it's very hands-off. So it's something that you sit back and you let run. Something you don't interact with very much. So you can see there's a big difference between active and passive strategies. You can kind of see here, we can start to relate the ideas towards alpha and beta. So alpha is definitely more of a active strategy, and beta is definitely more of a passive strategy, because these two complement each other very seriously. Now, let's move on to the final definition, which is the difference between medium and long-term investing. Medium term, I would classify as anything that is from several days onwards up to several months. And long term, I would classify everything that's from several weeks up to several years. Now we've had a look at all of these separately, let's bring them together. You can see how they all relate together approximately, however, I think some visual aids will help us here a little bit more. So let's have a look at how we would combine alpha, active, and medium-term investing into a picture essentially. What you see on the screen here is what I would consider an active strategy. As you can see, there are little arrows on the screen that are going long, short, all the way along, all the way from a couple of days to a couple of weeks to several months. And you can see the blue line is actually representative of the performance of this strategy. As you can see, it's fairly uncorrelated to the underlying price index. So that means as Bitcoin goes up and down, the strategy will be moving in a different direction a lot of the time. So as you can see here, what we've done is really we've generated alpha, and it's an active strategy, and it's operating over the medium-term time horizon. So this is what it looks like when you combine all of these different factors together. And this is one of the main investing styles that I advocate for. If an individual wants to get into alpha generation, it's quite complex. It involves a deep dive into crypto behavior, personal psychology and process systemization, the philosophy of high-level analysis, a deep dive into historical altcoin behavior, academic level token selection, sentiment cycles, Bitcoin's relationship and correlation to global stock markets, macroeconomic signaling, on-chain analysis and indicators, cross-asset correlation and use case examples, market value scoring, trend following strategies, profit capture, strategy and portfolio enhancement, systemization and quality rule creation, and price studies with statistical analysis. Whew. Now, obviously, this shows you that alpha generation is not a simple process. It's not as simple as just drawing pictures on the chart and thinking that your chart finger paintings are going to somehow magically produce extra returns that are uncorrelated to the market. It's a very competitive field, and it's going to require a lot of research. So on the screen now, what you see is an example of classic beta passive long-term investing, which is simply applying a little bit of leverage to the index. Now we have Bitcoin price index here, and we have the orange line, which represents a leveraged version of Bitcoin. As you can see here, when Bitcoin goes up, the leveraged index goes up faster, and when it goes down, the leveraged index goes down faster as well. This means getting the direction of the market correct is incredibly important. This next image is an example of strategic beta, passive, and long-term factor investing. So this, I couldn't find a good example in the crypto market. However, this same philosophy applies to the crypto market, just depending on how deeply you do your research. You can see here in the world of stocks, we have the world index in red, but we also have all the different factors that we can use to increase our beta, which is high dividend, minimum vol, momentum, quality, value, and small cap. Using any one of these different factors in the right market environment can increase your beta as a passive strategy without having to worry too much about the alpha generation process. You simply have a rule set and you apply that to the different assets in the market. You select them and then you hold them for the long term. This is a type of investing that I believe has a lot of potential in the future. Bitcoin dominates most of the flows in the market. However, during the right market environments, when certain narratives are propping up, like decentralized finance and things like this, it would be worthwhile diving into these different factors so that you can get the best exposure to the market. However, that takes a bit of foresight, a bit of extra analysis, and if that's something you want to chase, that's on you. My professional observation is that passive investing is quite easy, and it's the one that most people should begin at. Experienced investors often zoom in from passive and the large-scale kind of investing and then zoom in. And they find the best risk to reward profile, the best return for their effort profile, somewhere in between active and passive, where you're generating a lot of different rules and you're doing a mix between medium to long-term investing and extracting the information and the performance out of the market that way. Floating between the two different styles, there's nothing wrong with that. It actually is good. Once you have enough skills, once you have enough information and techniques, you can use the strategies that work for you in different market conditions, and that's probably something that I would recommend as well. So now that you know the difference between these two different investing styles, you'll be able to use the right one in the right market conditions, hopefully, but this is just the beginning. We're going to be expanding on these in the Investing Masterclass, where I actually tell you how to utilize these two different techniques in a very detailed and sophisticated manner. All right, I'll see you in the next video.
First Mutual. How can I be of service? I'll look into it.
boss. Stay safe, boss.
Hey, look, so our client is the CEO of a fancy-ass perfume brand, Lei Shien, whatever the fuck that is. Well, little Miss 1% just had a taste of the real world. Got herself mugged while she was smoking outside of whatever fucking restaurant they eat at this week. The MO sounds like...
First Mutual. How can I be of service? I'll do my best.
Good heavens.
look, so our client is the CEO of a fancy-ass perfume brand. work